Welcome to this feature highlight video on the topic of the new Syslog integration introduced in Gluware 4.0. Syslog is a well-known and used mechanism by which each network device is configured to send Syslog messages of different types to Syslog servers or collectors. The initial use case Gluware is focused on is using Syslog messages to catch potential unauthorized manual changes on a multi-vendor network. When a user enters config mode, the device will log and send a message to the various servers configured for a specific type of message, in this case Syslog type 5. So Gluware requires a few configuration steps to get this working. You enable it in your organization. You ensure your devices are configured properly to send those Syslog messages to Gluware. And you ensure your Device Explorer grid is enabled to see those messages. Details are also available in the Device Details click-in. So let's take a look at this in the user interface. Okay, so here we are in the Gluware 4.0 user interface and open up to the dashboard. Let's jump into the first step for enabling Syslog. You have to navigate into the system settings, and then on a per org basis you want to come in. So I'm navigated to this particular organization. This is a small system with a single org on it, but you must be navigated into the org you want to enable Syslog for. And then under Organization, select the Syslog menu and tick this box to enable Syslog. What this does on the back end of Gluware is it spins up a containerized version of Syslog NG, which is what we've instrumented as our Syslog listener or Syslog server. So we are turning on the ability to listen to Syslog messages, and we're listening on port 32,000. So we are assigning a port number. That is important when you're configuring the devices for Syslog. So that's step number one. Step number two is the devices themselves must be configured to send those Syslog messages to the server. So let's jump into that, and since Gluware can automate configuration, we're going to go into the model editor and we're going to automate that config change using Gluware. So let's navigate to the node view. And here on this this particular node, I have a assembly that includes the Syslog policy. So if I double click in on this, what I do want to show you here is there are a couple key things required. First is the logging host must be pointed at your Gluware instance. So in my case, it's 10.255.150.99. You can see that matches my Gluware on-prem server here. Then you must indicate the transport UDP port, and you must match the port. So we're sending those Syslog messages to that server using that UDP port. So that is what must be configured. So I hit save. So let's go back to the node view, and I'm going to adjust my view a little bit here to view the assembly policy. And you can see I have that particular assembly tied to one device here. What I can do is if I want it on these other devices as well, which we'll go ahead and do, I'm going to leave the CSR1 out for now. That one's configured a little bit differently. So I'm going to say, let me bring back up this view to a multi-select. And then now what I want to do from an association standpoint is I want to assign them all global features with the Syslog feature that I've configured. Hit save. So now all of those devices are assigned that set of features I'm automating. Now I come over into the tick box to provision. And in terms of provisioning, I'm going to provision the features. I'm going to skip the preview step since I know what changes I want to make, and I'm going to hit start action and proceed. So when the Gluware engine is provisioning or making those changes, you can scroll over in the grid view and see it kind of roll through that. So it's interrogating those devices. We use a declarative mode, so it's reading the current configuration, it's comparing it to the desired state, and it's going to roll through the features that we're automating, which is only one default policy there, and it's go through Syslog, which you see now. And then I'm also updating the username configuration on these devices. So once that is done, only takes a few minutes, these devices are going to be configured to send Syslog. and I'll see them all complete here. So okay, we're all completed here. So let's go back to something like Device Manager, and let's complete the third step to make sure you see the syslog activity. So anytime you're in a grid like the Device Explorer, which is in Device Manager and Config Drift and Audit and OS Manager, you can click on the cog here to determine what columns are shown. And what you want to make sure is configured info, configured type, configured by, configured on. These items, you want to make sure those are turned on in your grid. So if I scroll over here, I can see, the configured info, configured type, configured by, configured on. Okay, so now let's go ahead and trigger a syslog message from one of those devices. So to do that, I am going to bring up a PuTTY window, and I am going to just scroll back here where I can see. And if you need to connect into your devices and you don't know the information, you can double click in. I'm going to use this router ending in 152, and you should know your credentials, but I'm going to go ahead and SSH into that, emulating a manual change here. So 10.255, 150.152. Okay, so going into config mode and then exiting config mode will trigger the syslog message. So all you have to do on a router, if a user is going into configuration mode, even if they do or don't change, if they go into config mode and they exit config mode, it's going to generate a syslog message. So now via the Gluware user interface, we should be able to see the syslog message once it's registered with our system. So I can see here the syslog message was captured, and I can see the configured info console by J Doe. So it's captured here. It's a syslog type configured by John Doe, and it has a timestamp here. So this is where the syslog integration comes in. You can see this on any of your integrated grids that you've turned on these columns. Also, if you double click on that device and you bring up the detailed screen here, when you scroll down, you're going to see a new section in the details of the config info, config type. So you're going to see that info here as well. So one more last note on it is that another tip or recommendation is that if you want to see this or see it more prevalent, you can also integrate it into your dashboard widgets. So if you have a grid and you have a grid of your devices, you can customize the columns available and also expose the columns for configured by, configured type, and configured info. So that pops up right here. You could even filter for specific types of messages. Let's say you're looking for those syslog triggers. You could even do a filter on this as well. So with that, this concludes the demonstration component of the syslog integration. Well, thank you for your time and interest again here in Gluware. And if you're interested to learn more about Gluware or get started, there's 3 options. One is with the new Gluware Pro and 4.0 launch, we have a new free option where Gluware is free for up to 100 devices, and that's with Device Manager and with 45 days of config drift and audit. So you can go to gluware.com/pricing and check that out. Next is if you want to just kick the tires, the test drive is a good option. We spin up a virtual environment for you and give you some test cases to run through. It's gluware.com/test-drive. And then finally, if you'd like to interact with our sales team and have us understand your requirements and see how we can help you and provide a detailed demo and address more of your specific use cases, hit our website, gluware.com, and request a demo. There's a button at the top of the page, or you can go to request-demo. Thanks again.